Oklahoma. I hope you watched some version of Oklahoma, either a recorded theatrical performance or the film version. There was a film version in 1955. There was, I think I like the version with Hugh Jackman the most, but I remember watching a kind of replica version, which was a one-to-one rendition of the first staging made by some students of an artistic college in America, which was very interesting. This was really very interesting. So this was the show that also got Pulitzer Prize in 1944, and the only reason they haven't got the Tony Award on the original run was that the Tony Awards were not yet invented. They had Tony Awards for Best Revivals and Olivier Awards for Best Revivals in the 90s and in the 21st century, but they never got the Tony for the original show because it was before the award was invented. So it's a book musical. It's based on a literary source, on a theatrical play, and it was. Some say one of the game changers because it introduced a few things or consolidated a few things in the musical theater that were either not practiced or not really very popular, like the fact that everything should serve the story, even the dances, or some say it was the first musical to introduce the dream ballet, so the kind of dancing number in which a character falls asleep and they dream about their problems. So this is what happens to the heroine of the show. Laurie, she falls asleep and she has a kind of nightmare about what may happen to her, and there are two men trying to win her. One is a cowboy called Curly, and another one is a farmer, or basically a farm worker called Judd. So this was really one of the shows that surprised me in a very pleasant way, because when I first watched it I didn't know much about the early musicals, and I thought, okay, I need to see it because it's such an important show in terms of the history of the musical theater. And I thought, okay, it's going to be about cowboys. I'm not that much into cowboys. And then I watched it and I said, well, this is great. And I would really contest anyone who says it's trivial, because some critics in some of the books you can find the idea that it's kind of simple and trivial and nothing dramatic happens. Hey, there is death and obsession and really dark subjects here in this show, and I think it's very well presented, well thought of plot. On top of everything, the original material, the narrative is good, and the way that music and dancing and everything else operates only makes it better. So it's a little bit like Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, because we have two opposing sides, two conflicted sides. This time it's the cowboys and the farmers. Who would know? It's not the cowboys and the Indians anymore. It's about the cowboys and the farmers who have different lifestyles, and of course each of the groups believe that they are better, they are, I don't know, more moral and free, and basically the idea is that they have this tension between them, like you'll see many times in the musical theater. There are different groups that can very easily break into conflict. Some obvious examples, of course, West Side Story, Fiddler on the Roof as well, but we have these two young people who are clearly interested in each other, Curly and Laurie, and from the very beginning we have this kind of establishment of the scene with Curly singing the introductory song, "Oh What a Beautiful Morning," optimistic and cheerful. Some said it was unusual because it actually starts, the whole play starts with Laurie's aunt Ella, churning butter, and so you know the curtain goes up, and rather than a chorus line of beautiful young women, you have this middle-aged lady churning butter. It was unexpected, but somehow it worked. Then we have a few overlapping stories, like we have something very typical for musical theater, something that will again be repeated many times, the mirroring of the romantic couple in the comical couple. So beside Curly and Laurie, who are the romantic pair, we have Ado Annie and her lovers. So Will Parker, a young man who's in love with her, and exotic trader Ali Hakim, who also is in love with her. And as Laurie is sweet and innocent, and her courtship with Curly is very chaste and innocent, Andouani is a sexualized character. She's a kind of young woman who's flirtatious, who clearly, openly says that she can't refuse a man who courts her. We are left to think what she can and cannot refuse. She speaks a kind of slang version of the language, which is also typical for comical characters and kind of lower class characters. So her love troubles somehow mirror the love troubles of the main characters. There is a triangle as well, though in the romantic couple the triangle part is much darker. We'll come to that in a moment. But she's funny, she's sassy, she's sexy. This is also something that will be repeated many times. It's like a staple of musical theater. We'll have that in West Side Story, we'll have that in Kiss Me Kate, and many other characters, many other shows that have a romantic character versus this kind of sassy and sexy lower class character. A very interesting example of a song from Oklahoma is the Love Duet. It's a kind of love ballad between Laurie and Curly called "People Will Say We're in Love," And this is something, if you watch the documentary about Broadway, they talk about it quite a lot, and I think it's very interesting what they say. Apparently this was a specialty of Oscar Hammerstein. This kind of love song, a ballad that comes relatively early in the show, or at least before you would expect the characters to establish this kind of true love connection. So how do you make a very romantic, very kind of true lovey ballad fit the show at a relatively early stage in the show? You make it, as they said in this documentary, a conditional ballad. It's not a ballad, I love you till I die and I love you till I die. It's, let's pretend. Remember the song from Showboat, Make Believe? It's like they meet for the first time and they play a game. What would we do if we fell in love? So Hammerstein, of course, he wrote Make Believe for Showboat. He wrote People Will Say We're in Love for Curly and Laurie in Oklahoma. So they are too shy and too innocent to admit they are already in love. The audience can't guess it, of course, but they sing this wonderful conditional ballad. And if we look at other shows with lyrics by Oscar Hammerstein, you can find more examples of this conditional love ballad. So a sweet romantic song that pretends not to be talking about the real state of emotions between the characters, but rather plays the game or shows them playing games with each other. So it's a very interesting, very clever thing to do, and the way to actually work with the music, with the expectations of the audience, to convey additional meaning through even the type of song used in the show. Then we have this love triangle, and we have the character of Judd Fry, so this brooding, mysterious farm worker who is also, as it turns out, in love with Laurie, and by some turns of events, mostly Laurie wanting to tease Curly a little, she accepts Judd's invitation to a big picnic, which is like a big group scene in the show, and it turns up into a very messy situation, which, spoiler alert, but watch the show before, ends in Judd getting killed by Curly, mostly by accident, but there is a dead body, there is a manslaughter in the show, which is also not very typical for a musical comedy. And the way that most stagings of Oklahoma handle this situation, this love triangle, is rather dark. So it's like a warning never to flirt with a local psycho, because it can turn ugly. So if that's something to take out of Oklahoma, this is what perhaps I would like you to remember. It's shown as a really dangerous situation that Laurie initiates through her lack of experience, nothing more. She is then quite afraid, and the dream ballet at the end of Act 1 shows it. Then, well, I think think it's really the show about innocence and about how innocence may be dangerous to people who are too inexperienced to know better. So we have this whole situation between Laurie and Judd. Then we have the situation at the picnic called the square dance, which of course is a very clever way to introduce some dancing to the show, because at a local village picnic everybody would sing and dance, and that's what they would do. So we can have some intra-diegetic music and dancing without really having to have this convention that everybody is singing. But they are singing anyway. So this rivalry between the farmers and cowboys is one thing during this local picnic. The other one is the fundraiser which they organize. Come here. There's a cat here. To collect money for a school. So all the young women, unmarried women, prepare picnic baskets, and the men bid to buy the baskets. And of course, Curly feels obliged to buy Laurie's basket, and he goes as far as to spend the money he had saved for their wedding and for the beginning of their life together. So this is something which I found very cleverly done. The way in which this show presents the rivalry between men, in which women are just trophies. So what would happen if somebody else ate the dinner or bought the picnic basket from Laurie? Nothing would happen. It would not break their engagement, or it would not make Laurie, I don't know, fall in love with another man or marry another man or whatever. But still, Curly is very easily led into this kind of pointless and actually counterproductive rivalry with other men from the village, because he wants to be the alpha male. So that's perhaps a little thing to learn, especially for gentlemen, that if you want to impress the girl, try to impress the girl and not the other guys. I guess this is deliberate. It really works very well in the show. And then there is this wonderful group scene when the young lovers finally get married, and their marriage banquet corresponds with the news that Oklahoma was made into a separate state, one of the states of the United States of America. And they have this wonderful group number, Oklahoma OK, in which everybody joins together, and it's like personal happiness mixed with patriotism, mixed with optimism. This is as American as it can get, really. Again, very clever lyrics by Hammerstein, using the first two letters of the name Oklahoma, OK, as this very American expression of gladness. So Oklahoma OK, Oklahoma is wonderful, it's fine, and it's the best. The song was so popular, and the people in Oklahoma especially loved it so much, they made it into the official anthem of the state. So if you ever go to Oklahoma, you may hear it as a stage song, rather than just a show tune. So if there is anything else you'd like to add about that, I refer you to the forum. Please use the forum. I haven't seen much happening on this course's forums, and the other forums from other courses, they are just bustling with activity. So yes, swallow your shyness and say something, especially, well, if you are not very well versed in the history of the musical theory, or the theory of the musical theater, you at least can try to analyze something. And there are so many interesting numbers here, and songs and lyrics, that we can continue this discussion. For next week, what I would like you to do is to watch two shows. Film versions are fine: Cabaret and Hair. We are going to talk about the 50s and the 60s, and the emergence of the rock musical. We are going to talk about some very influential creative people, like another duo of composer and lyricist Kander and Ebb, the people behind Cabaret, and Bob Fosse, the director and choreographer behind Cabaret, yes. And then the first, or one of the first successful rock musicals, that is Hair. So the required watching for next week is Hair and Cabaret. Please watch this documentary series about Broadway and about the British musicals. We are going to need it in week 5. So to complete our overview of the history of the genre, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.